So, a couple of years ago, my son was going through my Netflix profile, and he saw a whole bunch of shows that I'd only watched for like less than 5 minutes each. And he looked at me and he said, "Dad, you're ADHD as fuck." And as it turns out, he was right. Just last year, I was indeed diagnosed with having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And after I got that diagnosis, I said, well, shit, that sure explains a lot. So, growing up, I always hated gym class. And I hated all my other classes too, but at least I could daydream through those. But it's kind of hard to fantasize about being a superhero or slaying dragons when you got a dodgeball coming at your head at 80 kilometers an hour. So I was not a good student. I was definitely not an athlete. But later on, I actually got a couple master's degrees and ended up being a pretty popular fitness writer. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But the transition toward that success was anything but smooth. Because, you know, growing up, I was bullied, told I was lazy, stupid, a loser. A lot of it had to do with being part of a school system that put a lot of emphasis on sustained attention and memorization, which are things that people with ADHD aren't real good at, and it kind of messes with your self-esteem. So I could not wait to be done with school. And after high school, I went out and I worked a variety of different jobs and didn't really like that very much either. So after a couple of years, I said, well, fuck it, I'll go to university. And I went to university, I gave that a try, and I promptly began failing. But then there was a life-changing encounter. You familiar with those romantic movies, kind of cheesy movies, where there's a guy, and he's kind of a fuck-up. And there's this incredible woman who enters his life, and it changes his life. Some people watch those movies, and they go, oh. Other people watch those movies, and they go, barf. I won't say which one I am. Anyway, there was this incredible woman, and she changed my life. She was a straight A student. She wanted to go to medical school. And I thought, I was deeply in love with her. And I was worried that if I didn't get my shit together and stop flunking out of university, that it wasn't going to work out. So I suddenly became very motivated to become a man that she could be proud of. And fortunately, right around that time, I took a history class with this very dynamic and engaging professor. And I was just enraptured. And I realized I have found my thing. And I took every history course that they would let me. And I worked really hard, and I did well. I ended up getting a master's degree in it. So what's this got to do with ADHD? Well, ADHD is a reward deficiency where we don't get enough of those happy hormone dopamine hits in our brain. So we go looking for it. And if we find a good source of dopamine, we may go a bit overboard and hyperfixate on it, like I did with history. Another thing with having ADHD is sometimes they engage in thrill-seeking behavior, which unfortunately can lead to things like abusive drugs and alcohol, and even participating in very dangerous sports. And yeah, that sounds a little bit familiar. But after the master's in history, I thought, I gotta get a fucking job. So I grinded my way through an MBA, and I worked in marketing for about a dozen years, which allowed for a little bit of creative thought. Wasn't super exciting. What I really wanted to do is I wanted to be a writer. And I'd really gotten into the fitness thing along the way, and I thought, I will become a fitness writer. That will be more exciting. It will give me that dopamine hit that I need. Didn't pay nearly as well, though. The girlfriend that I mentioned who wanted to go to medical school, well, she did, and we got married. And I highly recommend to every aspiring writer to marry a doctor. Makes that career path a lot easier. So I worked really hard to make my fitness articles interesting, funny, and engaging. And before long, I had columns in the Los Angeles Times, and the Chicago Tribune that were being republished in major papers around the world. So I didn't just have this creative outlet for my career, but I was getting some of that thrill-seeking of being acknowledged for what it was that I created. So the question is, are people with ADHD more likely to be creative? And the research suggests, yeah, probably. So growing up, I was always spaced out. My mind was in the clouds. I was daydreaming, telling myself stories. And, people made fun of me for that. So I didn't really like it about myself. But divergent thinking, which is the ability to come up with a wide variety of ideas from a single starting point, is a critical component of creativity. And people with ADHD, whose minds go all over the fucking map, are really good at divergent thinking. It's that whole concept of thinking outside the box. So I get weird thoughts, and I write some of those thoughts down, and some people like it, I guess. Another connection between ADHD and creativity is how prior knowledge can constrain you. It acts as an obstacle. So I'll give you an example. Imagine I tell someone to think of an alien creature from another world. And they will likely think of something that, maybe has arms and legs and eyes and mouth, and they might add some pointy ears or bumpy forehead Star Trek kind of shit, but it's still going to somewhat resemble something that we see here on Earth every day, because that prior knowledge is constraining their creativity. But people with ADHD are a lot better at just setting that obstacle of prior knowledge aside and coming up with some truly weird shit. Unfortunately, the better they are at that type of creative problem solving, the more likely they are to have issues with distractibility and impulsivity. Speaking of being impulsive, after about a decade of building up a solid reputation as a fitness writer, very suddenly on a whim, I said, I'm done with that shit, I'm writing history now. With swearing, because I'm impulsive, and sometimes when I'm really excited or maybe pissed off, the best word to use is cockwaffle. So that transition happened in 2020. If you remember anything about that year, it was a fucktacular shitnado of ass. It was just, and I was stressed out. But I was a writing machine. I was cranking out. I was publishing a sweary-filled history story every single day. And very quickly it took off. It was being read by millions of people. Not only that, I started making a lot of money. So you would think that I would be happy. But no, I was a ball of anxiety. My heart sometimes would just start pounding for no reason. Tightness in my chest, tingling skin, trouble sleeping. And I didn't know it at the time, but ADHD's most common comorbidity is anxiety. So what did I do? Well, I worked harder. Not just on the writing, but on the promotion of my writing, on selling, building up my social media, sell more books, sell more paid subscriptions, make more money. And yeah, that didn't help. That actually made things worse. And then I read some research that really was a light bulb moment for me. And that is, compared to people who don't have it, people with ADHD who are engaged in a creative effort will work at it more harder if there is if they're competing for a reward. So I was competing for the reward of making more and more money, and I was driving myself fucking crazy. So I needed to get to the root cause of my anxiety. So I started doing meth. I got diagnosed with moderate ADHD, and I was given a prescription for Ritalin. And Ritalin, the generic name is methylphenidate. So I looked and I said, oh, cool, I'm doing meth now. My wife, the doctor, said, you're not doing meth. She explained that methyl is something to do with a carbon atom bonded to hydrogen atoms. I got distracted. I kind of forgot what she was saying after that. Ritalin is a stimulant, though. And it's a stimulant that helps me not get so distracted, like I just did. So There's a joke about people with ADHD that we're so easily distractible that, we may be in the middle of telling a story and a squirrel will go by and we'll be, oh, squirrel! It's not the best analogy because, come on, if a squirrel ran across the stage right now, tell me you wouldn't be distracted by it. Anyway, I don't take Ritalin to write. I take it to stop writing. I will work for 5 or 6 hours in the morning, then pop a pill, and then step away. Stop obsessing over my need to make more money and go do other things like exercise and shower and eat. So I've struggled because of ADHD, and the medication helps me struggle less. I said I was always spaced out, and it was something that I didn't like about myself. Now I have a little bit of a different perspective because, it's not right for me to say that I'm grateful for having ADHD. I'm not. It's kind of a creative superpower with a load of anxiety kryptonite. But I am living a great life right now, and it may be due at least in small part to having ADHD. However, I realize I'm very lucky. Most people with ADHD are not anywhere near as lucky as I am. So I think we need to start thinking about, things beyond medication, what we can do for the next generation of kids growing up with ADHD, looking at different teaching and learning styles to help them be their best and most creative selves. And maybe by doing that, we can make the world not just a better place, but a more creative one, too. Thank you so much.